Hey, welcome to your next best step with Brett Cockrell, the locker room for purpose-driven leaders. This is where we slow down, reflect, and we take our next best step through real stories, practical strategies, and rooted leadership wisdom. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, even the best leaders need a coach in their corner. Hey, welcome to your next best step, the leader's locker room, where we slow down, get real, and become rooted so we can lead others better. Hey, I'm Brett Cockrell, and this is our final episode of 2025. So, welcome to the locker room / during the winter, the lab. This is where we create, chop it up during the winter months here in the below. Hope that you've had a great holiday season, Thanksgiving rolling into Christmas and now New Year's. I know our families, we've had an awesome time together. And so welcome today. Today I get a email every day from Father Richard Rohr. I have so appreciated his writing, his books don't necessarily line up with all of his theology, but that's okay. I line up with so much of his heart. And I love that he gives me a perspective that is typically other than mine. As I read scripture, it's like when I'm reading scripture, oftentimes I'll try to read through the lens of maybe a rabbi, uh, maybe somebody other than how I grew up. And so I want to be relentlessly curious. One of my values is I want to be curious. I want to be curious about all things. And I want to try to work hard against certainty. And so I get I get an email from him. He sends out an email every day, and it's always enlightening. But today was even more so, and it caused me to stop and ponder and to put some thoughts together. Uh, so today, that's what I want to just chat about a little bit today. This final episode, as we're closing up 2025, it's a uh, over the holidays. I've just finished, my wife and I, Gloria, we just finished watching the 6 series episode last night of the Eras tour, and I'm kind of amazed at the intentionality, the leadership. Like once again, I don't agree with everything Taylor Swift. I don't agree with everything. I think uh from years past and today, like I disagree with myself. So I don't have to line up. I don't have to agree with everything. I can live with paradox. I can live with two things can be true at the same time. And so I'm pretty blown away at Taylor Swift, at just like her intentionality, her attentionality, her thoughtfulness, and then just you know so much creativity. And so it was we were watching the final episode, and she does the little acoustic set, and it's always fascinating to see like what she comes up with, and it's usually in the back part with her mom, and she's kind of creating this, and her mom's always there in that. And so it was the last show of the Eras tour. And um in the song, I don't know all the words, but in this one particular song, she says it's the close of a decade. And her mom says, hey, you ought to change it out for it's the close of an era, right? And today is the close of a year. 2025, first, it's the closing of the first 25 years of this century. Like, wow. So that's kind of where my head is thinking at. And so um, I get this email from Father Richard Rohr, and I'm just going to reference. I've got some notes here, so I'm going to just reference those as we talk this morning. And I receive it every day. I try to read it to start my day. I don't bat 1,000, but I often try to start my day just reading that perspective. It's rooted in Scripture, so I love that. And so today he said that he was always had this tradition on the last day of the year to withdraw to pray and ask himself, what do we need in these, especially this year? What do we need? What do I need? What do we need in these turbulent times? And he says, naturally, I was strongly tempted to pray for more love. And he says, but it occurred to me that I've met so many people in the world who are already full of love and who really care for others. And he says, what we lack isn't love, but wisdom. Now, I agree with Father Rohr. We want to love. Most leaders I work with and that I know are full of love and really care for people, but we don't always know how to love as Father Rohr says, how to love rightly. How should we love so that life will really come from it? To be life giving dads and moms and neighbors and bosses? That question requires wisdom. And today, as we close out this year, I want to explore that with you through one of Jesus's most, I think, challenging parables. It comes from the Gospel of Matthew. Matthew's writing from a perspective, he basically wrote his gospel. This is the story of Jesus Christ through the lens of a Jew. And so here's his version of the story that Jesus tells. He says, the kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while everyone was sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. When the wheat sprouted and formed heads, then the weeds also appeared. The owner's servants came to him and said, sir, don't you sow good seed in your field? Where then did the weeds come from? Mm, an enemy did this, he replied. The servants asked him, do you want us to go and pull them out? No, he answered, because while you are pulling the weeds, you may uproot the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. At that time, I will tell the harvesters, first collect the weeds and tie them in bundles to be burned, then gather the wheat and bring them into my barn. Hmm. Now, if you're like me, your first instinct is to side with the servants. Let's get in there and fix this, right? Let's pull out what doesn't belong. Let's control the situation. Let's make right what was done wrong to us. But Jesus says something that goes against basically every leadership instinct that we've been taught. No, let them both grow together. And that's where wisdom comes from. And that's where wisdom comes in. I look back with some regret on how, as a leader and at times as a dad, uh, I tried to weep out. I tried to rip out the weeds, right? Uh, Especially prematurely. Maybe controlling for outcomes, rushing to fix people or fix scenarios or situations, or trying to fix my kids, right? In the desire to create certainty. I was fooled into thinking that certainly I was often fooled. I think thinking that certainty should always be the desired destination. Was kind of discipled into, well, we have to be certain about our theology, we have to be certain about our salvation, we have to be certain. And so we create systems that help us like form certainty, but certainty is a trap. Here's what Jesus is teaching us, or here's what is a perspective that I love from Richard Rohr that made me think and process a little bit differently about this parable, this perspective that Richard Father Richard gives us is not one that I grew up hearing. the wheat and the tares, the wheat and the weeds. Like that was them versus us. That was inside versus outside. That was saved versus the lost. That was the redeemed versus the rejected. Like heaven, hell. Like that's the only perspective I've ever given to this. And so I love, love, love a fresh perspective on what maybe Jesus was trying to say in this parable that we haven't maybe thought about before. And here's what Richard Rohr was, I think, he suggesting that Jesus was teaching us. We live in a world and we are people who are a mixture of both good and evil, light and shadow, wheat and weeds. Don Miller talks about, and in other places talks about the four characters in every great story. Talks about there's the victim, the uh, the victim, and then there's the villain, and then there's the hero, and there's the guide. Like there's more characters than that, but those four characters are needed to have a great story. And so I know personally I can be the victim and I can be the villain within minutes of being the hero and the guide. And I think all of us can, right? The field isn't just out there in our organizations or in our communities. That field that's got full of weeds and wheat, and that's not just out there. That's actually in here. The field is in here. It's in our souls. And Jesus says we need patience. We need maybe some humility. We need wisdom to know that if we go in with our certainty, with our need to control, with our compulsion to make everything clean and pure right now, we'll do more damage than good. This isn't permission for passivity. It's not saying anything goes or don't have standards. It's something I think much deeper. It's saying that transformation happens in soil, not in systems of control. It happens over time with patience, with trust. That there's a farmer who knows, that's capital F, a farmer who knows what he's doing even when we can't see it yet. This connects directly to kind of my core leadership principle, EDOT. Everything depends on trust. Trust is the soil from which everything grows. And when that soil is dried and broken up and it hasn't been nurtured and it hasn't been watered, good things don't grow. Suspicion grows, guilt, shame, like all kinds of bad weeds grow out of that kind of soil. But here's the thing, you can't rush trust. I believe everything depends on trust, but you can't rush it. You can't manufacture it. You can't create it by ripping out every weed you see in yourself or in others. Trust grows in environments where there's patience, where there's space for both wheat and weeds to exist while transformation is happening. Wow, such an interesting thought. Where leaders choose curiosity over certainty. When I was a pastor for 25 years, and now in my coaching work, I've seen the damage that happens when leaders, even well meaning, loving leaders, try to pull up the weeds too quickly. I've seen it, I've done it. They damage the wheat in the process, they damage people, they damage themselves. In the fall of 23, I stepped away from something that I'd done for 25 years into something new. It felt incredibly risky. And now, in retrospect, just thinking through like this lens, I found myself standing in what Richard Rohr talks about, this inconspicuous, mysterious place. And I felt like a weed in my own field, uncertain if I was making the right choice, uncertain if I belonged, if I was good enough. Is like Father Richard Rohr says, the church has taught people to think they're right or they're wrong. mandated things or forbidden them, but hasn't helped people enter the narrow and dangerous path of true wisdom. On wisdom's path, he says, we take the risk of making mistakes. We take the risk of being wrong. That's how wisdom is gained. I'm just thinking through even right now as I'm saying this. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. It's really been my life compass verse scripture. Trust in the Lord with all my heart, lean not in my own understanding, all my ways acknowledge him, and he will make my paths straight. Trust in the Lord, trust in the farmer, trust in the path that is always winding, that he will help me find the straight path, right? Think about um think about the servants in Jesus's parable. They sound a lot like you and me when I think about it. They wanted clear answers. Should we pull them up or not? They wanted a system, a mandate, a clear right and wrong. But Jesus invites them into something more complex, more patient, more humble. He invites them into wisdom. Think about you're when I think about this, I think about like I in the work that I do with leaders, and I do it with myself. What's my why? What's my what? And what's my how? My why is Simon Sinek calls that the golden triangle. My why is, man, it is the thing that causes me to get up, to think, to like why my purpose here on this earth. I've got to have God created us with a purpose. And when we don't know our purpose, then we struggle to do anything else. We're always chasing. So we got, as Simon Sinek, but Simon Sinek he didn't originate that. Like we need to know our why. I think we find that in scripture. What's your purpose? And we see throughout scripture the stories of men and women who found their purpose. They found their why they exist, right? And then the what, those are the values. These are the things that I'm rooted and grounded in, that I'm not chasing circumstances. I'm rooted and grounded in values. But those values, whether they're for our company, our organization, for our lives. I mean, I'm looking up here at my board right now. I see my three values, right? And so I'm looking up there. It's number one value is trust. Second value is empathy. Third value is relentless curiosity. Those are, and that looks great up on the wall, and I remind myself, but it's not just the what, then it's the how. Well, how do I do that in the behaviors? How are those manifested in every place that I walk into and every face that I see? That's what we have to face as leaders, right? And if you don't have your why, if you don't have your what, and if you don't have your how, then that's not judgment on you. It's like most of us don't have that. Like, but let's begin to think about that. And so when it comes to my how as a leader, the way I show up, my how is showing up in every place, in front of every face, valuing trust over suspicion, curiosity over certainty, relationships over transaction. When I'm on board, and when I'm talking to somebody about stepping into a coaching relationship, I'm not trying to sell them anything. Like I'm not trying to I'm not looking them as like, hey, this is a means for another client. No, I'm prayerful. Like, Lord, help me. Like, I want to be working with the people you want me to work with, right? And so I value that. I value people. I'm not trying to, coerce somebody into a coaching partnership. No, like I'm just going to trust that God's going to work that out. And I'm like, hey, here's what we can do. That's how I try to show up. Trust over suspicion, curiosity over certainty, relationships over transaction. Those are just that's kind of my how. Those are some of the behaviors that I want to show up with, right? That's the path, I think, of wisdom. It's narrow because it requires us to hold some tension. It's dangerous because we might be wrong, but it's the way of Jesus and it's where real transformation happens. Now, here's what hit me as I sat with this parable and Richard Rohr's reflection today. My why has always been basically, and if you were a part of kind of the my role as a pastor at the church that we launched here in Buffalo, our why, we just said this: we exist to ensure that every man, woman, and child gets repeated opportunities to hear and see and taste and touch and smell the goodness and the love of Jesus. We just simply we said Jesus, Jesus makes your life better and makes you better at life. Well, that wasn't just my why for church. That's the why for me. Like I I I want to ensure I believe that Jesus makes everything better, right? And so that's my why. So as I'm thinking about this, my why has always been to help every person in every place get repeated opportunities to hear, see, taste, touch, and smell the love of Jesus. But what I started to realize is it's not just the love of Jesus, it's the love and wisdom of Jesus. Like it's not just his grace, not just his mercy, it's his wisdom that I want for people. Jesus didn't just love people, he loved them wisely. He knew when to speak and when to be silent, when to challenge and when to comfort, when to let the rich young ruler walk away. That's always an amazing thing to me. He let him walk away. And when to call Zacchaeus down from the tree. When to tell the servants, don't pull up the weeds, even though that seemed counterintuitive. That's what we're after as leaders, not just love, not just wisdom, but both together, love and wisdom. Richard Rohr says we have to stand in an inconspicuous, mysterious place, a place where we're not sure that we're sure, where we are comfortable knowing that we do not know very much at all. That's countercultural, especially for us leaders. We're supposed to have all the answers, right? The vision, the certainty. We're supposed to know which plants are wheat and which ones are weeds. We're supposed to know when to pull and when to wait. But what if the greatest gift we can give our teams or organizations, our families, is the freedom to not be sure we're sure? What if wisdom isn't about having all the answers, but about knowing how to tend the field with patience and trust? Whew. So, in closing these thoughts, here's some practical application, some next best steps for us. What about here's the next best step. Name the mystery. In your next team meeting, acknowledge what you don't know alongside what you do know. Practice saying, I'm not sure yet. I'm hopeful, but we're not positive. We need to let this grow for a season before we can see it clearly. Here's another one. Create space for weeds. What? Where in your leadership are you trying to control outcomes too tightly? What person, project, or process are you tempted to pull up the weeds prematurely? What would change if you let the wheat and weeds grow together for a season? Here's another one. Trust the soil. Remember, EDOT. Everything depends on trust. The farmer in Jesus' parable trusted the soil, trusted time, trusted the harvest would come. What's one way you can deepen trust this week by choosing curiosity over certainty? As we close out 2025 and step into a new year, I want to invite you into a posture of wisdom, and myself included. Not just certainty, not just love without discernment, but the narrow, dangerous, beautiful path of wisdom that Jesus modeled in this parable and throughout his life. So here's my challenge for us as we enter to the new year. What if we prayed for wisdom in 2026? Not just for more love, though we need that. Certainly, we need peace. Um, there's a buddy of mine, Kyle Jackson, and his buddy Sean Sheridan. They started this Pray for Peace 101. You can go online and find that. We're praying for peace. A bunch of us at 101. I do it every day. Got a little alarm. But not just for peace. What if and not just for clarity or success or growth, but for wisdom to know how to love rightly. The wisdom to stand in the mystery, the wisdom to know when to act and when to wait. The wisdom to trust the soil of trust you're cultivating, even when you see weeds growing alongside the weed. It's not easy. Because here's what I believe: the environments and experiences you create as a leader, the bridges that you're building, and the lights you're turning on, those come from standing in that inconspicuous, mysterious place where you offer your bit of salt and light without needing to be sure you're sure. Where you trust that there's a farmer who knows what he's doing, even when the field looks messy. Hey, thank you for being a part of this podcast, The Locker Room in 2025. Thank you for slowing down, getting real, and doing the work of becoming rooted. The world needs leaders like you, leaders who value trust over suspicion, curiosity over certainty, relationships over transaction, leaders who have the wisdom to let wheat and weeds grow together while transformation happens. Hey, this is BC. This is your next best step, and I'll see you in 2026.